Hi, Siva. Let's get started.
Sure, Vikas. So, hello everyone. I'm Sukumar from Vtiger development team. Today, firstly, I would like to thank everyone for sparing your time and joining this webinar. So today's webinar, we are going to talk about this module called Process Designer. In VTAP, a Vtiger application platform, we are continuously working on a lot of tools which will allow us to customize our instance. In last couple of talks, we talked about different modules. Now, one of another module is Process Designer. So basically, one dimension of VTAP is to allow users to customize it. Another dimension is to allow users to easily configure the business workflows. So that's where we have this module called Process Designer, which I'm going to talk about it today. So the agenda of this talk would be introducing you to this module to explain what is it, why we implemented this, and how we came up with this idea. Then I'll talk about the vision to explain you where we want to see this product at the end. Then I'll give a demo to show you how to use it, how to configure, how this module can be used. Then I'll talk about the roadmap for next couple of releases. At the end, I'll give some time for Q&A session. If you have any questions, you can ask. While I was talking, if you have any doubts, please feel free to put it in the Q&A section in the Zoom meeting. We'll answer at the end. So before starting, this actual talk, I just added few screenshots to show you a glimpse of what we are going to talk about this whole in this whole session. So this is the designer I was talking about. The process designer basically will allow you to configure your business process in a flowchart mode. So if you see, this is the starting point, then the condition block, and each of this component has a different purpose. I'll explain in while I was giving the demo when we go to the demo. So this is how it's going to look. To add any actions, there is a plus icon on each element where you can click, where you will see this option. These are the actions what we can add in the process, and some other couple of things. So for every component we will have different properties. For example, this is the send email action. So how to configure this send email action? So on selecting this element, we will get the properties like this, where you can configure for send email, to whom you want to send, subject, basically how you are right now configuring it, workflows. The same way it will show here. And the last and very important and interesting thing is to show the history of record. So right now, when workflow is going on, executing on a particular record, there is no one place to show you the whole history of what happened on this record from this workflow. So, but in process, basically we gave a different section where we will show list of records. So on opening, it will show the history of the process that executed on this particular record. So yeah, so let's get started to understand process designer better. So firstly, what is this process designer? As I said, so a process designer is basically a module which facilitates users to configure their business rules using a graphical interface. So why a graphical interface? So we are talking about a process designer which is similar to workflow, right? So the intention of process designer is to allow us to configure the automated actions, the workflow actions, whatever we are right now configuring in settings workflow section. But the reason why we came up with this idea is because there is something called BPM, business process modeling notation. So what business process modeling notation says is show the business process in a pictorial representation, which gives an ability to understand it better, an ability to maintain it better. So if we have some flow in a text format, to read it and understand it will take some time for any user, right? But if you have in a pictorial representation, a flowchart mode, it makes it very easy to understand. It makes it very easy to maintain and make it an error-free flow. So that's where we took the inspiration, and we wanted to enhance our workflow in an advanced mode and allow users to easily configure their business rules with a module. So that's where we implemented this process designer module. Now, I was talking and comparing with workflow, right? So let's just see what all the small challenges right now we have with workflows, which we actually try to fix it in process designer and deliver. So right now there are some challenges in workflows. For example, there is no visual representation. So workflow is basically, you can go to settings and workflow section where you can add a workflow, add some conditions and add some tasks, right? So, but there is no visual representation, which makes it a little hard to understand. If you want to know what is happening inside the workflow, you have to go into that workflow and study that. Now, right now, when you configure now, after some time, if you want to understand it, again, you have to revise that knowledge, right? Number two is separate workflow for each flow. For example, if I have a deal management, right? So the deal record can transition from one state to another. So while transitioning from one state to another, this deal might go to different departments in my company or my business process. So while going to different departments, each department has their own automated actions for that transition. So in order to add that automated actions, we will have to add multiple workflows. So for this department, when condition is this, add these, execute these actions. When conditions are something else, execute some other actions. So now the another thing is no way to perform actions on condition failure. So if we take our workflows right now, the process of adding workflows is first we will add the conditions, trigger, when to trigger this workflow. Then we'll add conditions. Like when the conditions satisfy, execute these particular actions. So that is the flow, right? But when the condition fails, if you want to perform some actions, there is no way. And last challenge is no wait time. There are some use cases where we might want to wait for some time before performing any actions. For example, I wanted to make sure my task or my ticket get resolved in 2 hours, right? Or my ticket get addressed in 2 hours. So when a ticket is created, I would like to wait for 2 hours and see ticket move forward or still in the same pending state. So for that, I'll have to wait for some time. So that possibility is not there in workflow. So these are some challenges what we have in current version of workflows. So to fix it, to give an easy way to avoid all these problems. So our vision of this process designer is to provide a convenient and easy way to set up your business flows. So which will help you fix all these issues. That is one thing. And the second thing is to give one stop to set up all your business flows. For example, workflow is one section where when something happened on a particular record or based on the condition, we want to execute some actions. On the other hand, we have something called approvals. Based on some conditions, we have to submit for this approval. So workflow is in one area, approval is in another section. So the idea behind process designer is to merge all these things into one place where user will be able to configure all these things in one form, one flow, which will make it very easy to maintain for any module, for any business process. And the last thing is to give an ability to automate any action user can perform. Right now, if we take workflows, we have some couple of actions: create record, update record, email action, SMS, WhatsApp. Some 7 to 10 actions are there. But our vision with process designer is to allow pretty much any action what user can perform from the UI. We should be able to configure and automate from the process as well. So this is the overall vision of what and how we wanted to see process designer at the end. So we are giving this feature in multiple iterations. In the first release, which we did on January, we actually gave it some features. And in the coming slides, I'm going to talk about the process design, the current process designer with what all features we have. And I'll give a demo with how to use it, how to configure it. So let's just go in detail about what is this process means, what all to understand what components we need in the designer, right? If we take a skeleton of any process, what all things we would need, right? So first and important thing is the start. when to start this process. So even if we have workflow have the first thing is the trigger, right? When the record is saved or when a record is updated, trigger this workflow. The same way for any process to start, when this process should start, either when the record is updated or when the record is saved, we want to start this process. So for that, one component, a starting component, trigger component is needed for any process. And the second important thing is conditions. So not always we would like to execute the process on all the records, right? Sometimes we wanted to filter the records only on specific records, trigger this process. So to help us with that, we need a conditions ability also should be enabled in the process. And the third thing is nodes. When the condition satisfied what we wanted to do, when the condition not satisfied what we wanted to do. So the process should give an ability to configure these nodes. On condition satisfies, trigger these actions. When condition did not satisfy, trigger some other actions. So for that, this node, true or false node ability should be there in the process, and adding required actions ability is also there, right? And the fourth thing is the timer. So I explained one example while talking about workflow challenges, right? So sometimes we may want to wait for some time before checking or performing any actions. So for that, timer concept is also important. So these are all the basic and important things which any process would need, any process designer, any designer would need, right? When it comes to business rules or business process. So keeping all these things in mind, we enable these components in our process designer, which I'll explain in detail in the demo. The first thing is the trigger. When a process should trigger, this component will decide when a process should trigger. So the second thing is the conditions. Where you wanted to filter any records, this component will help you to filter the records. And actions, set of actions, what you want to perform based on the conditions on the records, filtered from these conditions. And wait time component, to wait for any given amount of time before proceeding it. Okay, so these are all the things actually what we have enabled in our process designer components. Now, let's go and see these things in action to get to know this very clear and in deep. So, actually, I took some use cases to make it clear, understanding how to use it and all. So I took one simple use case of task management, right? So task escalation is my goal in this use case, where I have some project is going on in my team, and I want to make sure my task should be started within 2 hours. Okay, if a task comes to our team, if it is in pending state, within 2 hours, someone should pick it and start working on it, and it has to be finished by due date. So when a task is created, this task due date also will be set. By this due date, it has to be finished. Right? That is my goal in the task escalation. If we split this and see this in detail, this is how the process would be. Every time a task is saved, if task is not started, every time task is saved, it is not started, I'll send an email notification to my to the task owner saying there is a task assigned to you. I'll wait for 2 hours, then I will check. If task is not started, then escalate to project manager. Which means from the time the task is created, I'll wait for 2 hours, then I will check. If not started, then escalate to project manager. Okay. The other thing what I wanted is finish by due date. So task should be started within 2 hours is my first flow. It should be finished within due date is my second flow. Right? In the second flow, what we have, task due date is passed. And the task due date is already passed and task is still not completed, then I wanted to send a follow-up to the owner and escalate to the project manager. Now, this is my use case where I wanted to automatically escalate things when something did not happen, based on the plan. And this is the theory, right? Now, if we see this process in one flowchart mode, now anyone to understand this, we have to read and get to know what is happening in this flow, right? If you see this in a flowchart, this is how it's going to look in our designer. Now, every time, this is the triggerer, which says, which is allow you to configure when this process should trigger. I'll say every time task is saved. In this properties, I'll configure that. When I'll add a condition when task is not started, notify the owner saying a task is assigned to you. Please, have a look at it. Then I'll wait for 2 hours. Then I will check. If it is still not started, I escalate to manager. So here, actually, if you see the difference between this process in a theory and in a text mode and the graphical or flowchart representation, it gives a clear meaning, and it's easy to understand in this mode. So the other flow is, when the due date is passed and task not completed, follow up with the owner and escalate to manager again. So this is my process, how it's going to look in our designer. I'll go to one instance and show you how to configure this. Right? I have an instance here. So a process designer, basically you can find it in our platform section in apps, process designer, or you can go to any administration section where you are seeing workflows right now. Everywhere we will see the process designer module. And this process designer module is supported only for admin users, since it is a business rule administration thing. We allowed this module only for admin users. Right? So I'll go to the process designer. The first thing I do is, like any other module, we'll have list of tasks. From the list view itself, we will we have toggle to enable or disable whenever we want. So I wanted to configure this process, right? I'll add a task. So the basic things, some fields we need to fill, task escalation demo. So this is for tasks module, right? We need to select on what module we want to trigger this process. This is the tasks, active. These are the default values which we will fill. These two are the things which we need to fill before going to the process designer. So edit process. So this is how initially it's going to look. So it's going to show by default the trigger. So trigger properties. When we want to trigger this process, we want to trigger every time record is saved. Right? I will say every time a record is update, including creation, every time record is saved. So this configuration is similar to what we see in workflow section right now. But tomorrow we will add more actions here. For example, when some user clicked on a button from contacts list view or contacts detail view, we can trigger a process, because basically it is based on manual action. We want to trigger this process, or based on a workflow. When a webhook is received, we want to trigger a process. So we have a plan of adding more and more triggers here. So for now, in the first release, in the first phase, what we released is whatever things we support in workflows, everything is there in process designer as well, with a graphical representation. So the first thing is, when a record is saved, which means every time record update happens, including creation, record is saved. This is my trigger. We can save it like this. Now, what we need to do is, I need to add one condition. If task is not started, I wanted to check this, right? To add a condition or any other component continuation to this flow, we have this plus icon. On click of this, we will see these things. Here in the actions, we have all the supported actions, the conditions, where we can add the conditions. So I'll click on add. So these are the condition block, the same way how we are seeing in any other place in the whole product, we have condition blocks like this. What I'll say is, if task stage is not started. So again here, like how we are configuring in workflows, we can even select the field or the expressions, whatever we support in workflows, everything is supported in process as well. So in the last text, I'll say if it is not started, I saved the condition. So we can add any conditions here. So in my use case right now, what I'm explaining, the stage is not started, then I want to proceed and do some actions, right? So that's why I only add this condition. Now, I would like to send one email to the owner of this task saying a task is assigned to you. You have to start working on this. So I'll say, again, these properties also similar to all the properties, all the functionality, what right now supported in workflows, everything is supported in process designer also in these properties, like adding a merge template or including a related documents or inserting any links like appointment, surveys when it is installed. So task is in pending. there is a task sent to you in pending state. I'll add CM detail URL. So I'll just save it. This is notifying to owner. Now what I have to do is I'll wait for 2 hours. So the task is saved and it is in pending state, and I notified the owner also. Then I'll have to wait for 2 hours. Then check if task is moved forward or not. So for that, again, I'll click on here, and there is a wait time here. I'll click this. So these are the properties which we support in wait time. Wait for 2 hours or 2 days, or minimum we have to add at least 15 minutes. That is the minimum window. So in my use case, I want to wait for 2 hours. Okay. Then I want to check other thing, right? Wait for 2 hours. If task is still not started, then escalate to manager, right? Again, I have a condition block here. If stage is still not started, then I'll send an email to like project manager subject. Task is pending since 2 hours. This task is pending from 2 hours. Please review. So again, I'll add record URL. I'll save. Right. So here one flow is done. Now in the screenshot what I showed you, we are seeing the labels also, right? But here it just added only the elements when I'm clicking on this. So how to add the label? For everything we enable something called label here, which shows you like this. When task is saved, if task is not like this, actually we can add the labels. The label you can position anywhere, and if you want to put it here, this is how I did. And likewise, actually we can add the labels. Notify owner, wait 2 hours. If task is still not started, escalate to manager. So this is my first flow. So I have another flow in this. So when the task due date is passed and task is still not completed, so it has to be finished by due date, right? If it did not finish, then I want to escalate again. Right, I'll add another condition. So basically we can, in this editor, we can move these elements anywhere we want. For example, if we want to add, so the other tools what we have, I'll explain it once this configuration is done. So we can move the arrows. So if you want to change the look and feel of your design. So the second flow is if due date and time is before today. So this condition configuration, there is nothing special in process designer. It is similar to whatever we have in workflows, but one ability what we gave in condition is to set up if you want to perform anything on negative action. For example, when condition satisfies, we trigger some actions. When condition did not satisfy, what we want to do. For example, if due date is passed and stage is still not started, then I want to escalate to my manager, right? I'll add an action again to task is not completed on time. Send an email. Now, So this is the positive thing. When a task is, when the condition satisfies these actions, it will perform. What if you want to do something when condition did not satisfy? So in the workflow mode, what we have to do is we have to reverse the condition and we have to add another workflow to support this thing, right? But in process, we have given something called a false here. When this condition did not satisfy what we want to do, on click, basically it will add false section. Then you can add the actions here. If you want to send an email, you can do, or if you want to create some other record update, whatever actions basically we support in workflows, all the actions are supported in process also. So it's going to look. So for negative actions, if you want to do, this is how we can add on false. Right? So right now in our case, we don't need this thing. So that's why I'll remove it. So from till here, basically our flow is done, right? So I when wait for 2 hours. If task is not started, escalate to manager. Number 2, if task did not complete on time, then also escalate to manager and send a mail to the owner also. I would like to send a mail to assign to primary address. Task is not completed on time. This task due date is passed. Please review. This is my flow. And again, here, if we want, we can add the labels. Due date is passed and task is not completed. Escalate to manager. Then so this is how we can configure our, set up the rules and using this designer. So basically it is very simple to add it by just, simple clicks to add any action or any other components continuing to any process, right? So coming to these tools, Lasso tool basically helps you to select anything. If you want to select everything and delete it, you can do something like that. And we have all shortcuts also enabled in the tool, Control Z or delete, undo and redo, those kind of things. The other one is add or remove space. So after adding multiple flows, so basically this is one simple flow I added, right? So after in the next use case, I'll explain you some complex flow where there are so many flows and so many actions in it. So at some time, if you want to add any space between any elements, you can basically use it like this. So this tool is for adding the space. Number 3, zoom in. If you want to zoom in and zoom out and reset zoom. So these are this tools here available in the designer. Now our design is done. Now we want to publish it, right? So as long as if you have any pending things to design, if you want to forward this for any review or something, so before publishing, actually we wanted to have it multiple iterations of reviews. So for that, actually we give something called save as draft. So when you click on save as draft, the process will be saved, but it will not be active. So it is still inactive, it is just saved. So until you publish it, you can edit n number of times, you can modify the process n number of times, adding any actions or removing any actions, we can do anything. But once it is published, there is no way to edit it. I can click on this edit here and I can review anything. And if I want to do any changes, I can do it. Okay. So once our process is ready and if it is ready to publish, we can publish it from here using save and publish, or we can even publish it from here. Right? So I'll talk about this version in a couple of minutes. So let's just publish it first. So I just publish. Once published this version will be locked and no modifications are allowed. So it will show when it is published. As soon as you publish, so we don't have any option to edit it. So because it is locked. The reason why we are doing this is after publishing, when a record is saved, so those record will already started executing under this process. Now if we change the process again, so the actual process which the record is going right now will mess up. So that is the reason actually we are not allowing to edit any version. If you want to change the version and add any things, with time being, basically our business process may also change, right? Right now my process is this. So I can view from here and see what is happening in this process. On click, everything it is in view mode. It will not allow you to add anything or delete anything. So at some point after 6 months my business is changed and I would like to add more actions to it, or this wait time I wanted to make it 1 hour. Now how can I do it? So why that is why actually we gave this versions concept here. Now version will make you keep the track of previous processes. In last year this is the version which executed on in tasks module. So this year actually I wanted to change and give an enhanced business process. So that's why actually we gave this duplicate or a clone button. You can clone it whenever you want to change it. So all the process what you configured in the previous version, it will come to this. Now this is version 2. You can save as draft. Now as long as you don't activate it, this version will be inactive and it will execute it. Once you activate this, so there is already this message is the same message what I showed you while publishing the first version. There is already another version active for this process which will be disabled, which means once you enable this process, the previous version is disabled, because at any point of time only one process will be active on one version will be active on any process. Okay, so this is how basically we can configure the process and publish it. Now let's see how it will execute. I'll go to a tasks module and I'll create a task. Says it is not started. I'll add one task. Oh, sorry, this is. Go to tasks module and add a task. I'll say demo task. So due date, I'll say by tomorrow it has to finish. And it is not started, right? I'll save it. So in my process, basically, I wanted to trigger the process when it is not started. That is my first flow, right? The second flow is when due date is on due date. If it is not completed, I want to escalate to something. So to see whether this process executed or not, or what all records gone through this process, we have this record section, the task which I saved just now. It says it is in progress. So in flow 1, basically there are 2 flows, right? If due date is completed, then we have to escalate and start. The task is not completed yet, we want to escalate it. That basically it's false, because due date I set to tomorrow, it's not passed yet. So this condition basically failed. The other condition on the other hand, if task is not started, send an email to the owner. That is my first thing, right? And I wanted to wait for some time. So this wait time is started now. Now after 2 hours, a background job will come and it will continue from there. After 2 hours, the condition it will execute and follow through the next set of actions. So as long as this wait time is not done, this record will be in progress state. So this is how the history is going to show. So since we don't have time to wait for 2 hours, I already had one record gone through this. This is how the whole flow will look like. The stage is not started. I sent an email to the owner. I waited for 2 hours. Still stage is not started. I escalated to manager. So the whole history of what happened on this particular record. So if condition is satisfied or not satisfied, will show true or false here. And when the wait time is started, when wait time is ended, we show here. And sent email status also, whether it is sent or failed with some reason. So all the information. So if it is completed, then it will say it is completed. This is how the history is going to show, which makes it, which gives one place to see what happened on this particular record from this process. Now, since in this version I mentioned every time record is saved, execute this process. Now, if I save the same record again this process will trigger. But if you set execute only once, execute on when the first time is saved, On the first time, only once that record will be processed through this process. Second time, it will not execute. So yeah, this is one example. The another example and some complex example I wanted to show to give you to show you the possibility of the process designer. So let's say the second use case is the deal management. I have a car sale. I have a company which sells cars. So I have transition of this deal from one state to another, from new to delivered, and each state has its own actions. New, I want to do something, and gather requirements, I want to add some automated actions. So if you see the process in detail, this is what I wanted to configure in my company. When a deal is saved, which means when a car buying request came to my company, the first thing I want to do is, when this gather requirements, I want to create task to sales team, a call task saying call this customer and gather all the requirements. Then another action is record alert. So record alert is one action we enabled in process, which adds one entry in the record summary view. So whenever you open a record in the summary view, it will show this message, whatever message we added in record alert. The second thing is, when it is ready for test drive, I want to send an SMS to customer saying your test drive is scheduled for this date, please visit the store. Wait for 2 days. If customer did not complete the test drive, then have a follow-up call. And the next thing, when customer decision pending, after customer did the test drive, he might want to wait for some time to take the decision, right? So when it is decision pending, we wait for 2 more days and have a follow-up call. So 2 days before you had a test drive, so we were waiting for your decision. So then if customer accepted, update stage to gather documents. So we might want to gather some documents, maybe his license, or if we want to go with some finance, some other documents we want to take. And when it is ready to deliver, inform customer via email and SMS. This is one complete flow of my sale process from one state to another. Now, in order to do this, if you consider workflows, basically for this section, we want to add one workflow, second workflow, third, fourth, fifth, right? On top of that, we don't have this wait time concept. If you want to wait for some time before calling the customer or before sending a message to him, right? So if you see this process in Process Designer, so this is how it's going to look. Every time a deal is saved, when it is in gather requirements, add a task to the sales team saying we have to call this customer and gather these requirements, and also add one record alert. As soon as the sales agent open the record in the summary view, we want to show something. And if it is not gather requirements, right? If it is true, it will proceed to this. If it is false, we will check whether if the state is in ready for test drive. If it is ready for test drive, send an SMS to the customer giving the information. This is an SMS task. The icon actually shows you what it is. So basically, this is a create record task. This is a record alert, which is record notification, which shows in summary view. This is SMS. This condition, this is wait time. So even these icons actually states what this action really is. And after sending an SMS, we wait for 2 days. If customer did not come for test drive, we make a follow-up call. This is one process. We wanted to show our call to the customers. The second thing, so customer finished this seeing the car and this process. If customer decision is pending, we wait for 2 days again and follow up task. We create a task to sales team saying you have to call this customer and ask what is his decision. If he accepted, get all documents, create a task to sales team to get all documents again. So it is ready to deliver. We send a mail to customer and via SMS also, multiple communication channels, we wanted to inform him. So this whole process, basically, we can design in one, this whole multiple flows, we can design in one process, which actually makes it easy to understand the whole process, what is happening in this particular sale process in my company, right? So I'll show you. I already added this sale process. So this is how it's going to look as I shown in the screenshot. So I added in the same way how I did with the previous process, which I showed demo. I clicked on this plus icons and selected what I wanted to do. I wanted to check some condition, perform these actions. If condition did not satisfy, check another condition. If ready to test write, send an SMS, wait for 2 hours. Then customer did not complete the test time, make a follow-up call. Let's just publish this. Okay, I'll add the deal. Right. So I'll add a deal in gather requirements to see if these actions are happening. Demo deal. So I'll say gather requirements. I'll just click on save. So if I open this record, so I just added this from record alert. If you see here, the message what I added is gather customer preference on type, model, color of the car. Right? I just added one message. When they come to this deal, this is the next action section. So this record alert, when we add that section, that action will be shown in this next action section, where user will see gather this. So when the sales agent come to this, he will get an idea. Okay, this is the next action I want to perform. I will need to gather this information from the customer, and at the same time, we will add a task also. And if you go to this tree, flow one, the stage is gather requirements. We created a task to gather requirements for a particular, this is related to this deal demo. Okay, then I added a record alert. And all the other conditions, the flow 2, flow 3, there are multiple flows we have in this, right? It did not satisfy in this save. Status is not customer decision pending, it is not accepted, it is not delivered. It is actually gather requirement. Now, if we save this record again and change the status to something else, now actually it will actually execute the other processes. So for example, I'll just say I'll add this to customer decision pending. Right now, in the first save, actually something happened and particular flow executed, and this happened. In the second save, now customer decision pending is the thing which actually satisfied. Right, customer decision pending. Now wait time started. So now after this wait time is finished, again background job will come and see. So when decision is pending, we want to wait for 2 days and have a follow-up call, right? So this is the action which will perform by the background job. So in this process, on every save, the process will be triggered. Based on what condition satisfied, it goes to that flow and it will execute it. And if multiple conditions are satisfied, multiple flows are satisfied, it will go through multiple flows also and execute all these things. So this is how a process, how you can actually merge all your flows into one process. So that's and actually it makes it very easy to even see and understand it, see maintain it and manage it in the further things. And again, after some time, if you want to change it, everything we have this clone option also, which we say, and records as well. When you have multiple versions, so each version will be shown here, which shows actually. So for example, here I have 4 versions. In the first version, this record actually went through this version, and the second version, I think, third version, this record. And whenever we actually enable a version, activate one version, if there is already existing record going through this particular process, those things will be cancelled because this process will make inactive. For example, there is a wait time in this process. Some record is waiting for this wait time to finish to proceed to further action. Now, user will come and enable previous action or a previous version or clone another version, right? At that point of time, what will happen is records which are already through the current version, those things will be cancelled. That's why it is showing here for version 3 as cancelled. At some point it cancelled because a version is changed. So for every version, we have a list of records which executed on this version, and on click of this, we show the history of everything, whatever happened for the particular. So we don't need to go to the update section of each record and see what happened in this flow. Everything is in one place. So yeah, that is how easy it is, how feasible it is to configure the whole flows into one process. Now coming to the roadmap, so right now I showed you the actions and trigger, everything pretty much similar to what we have in workflow. That is how we released in phase 1. In the coming releases, we wanted to add more abilities to it, and these are few important things which I would like to share. First thing is allowing to add condition on previous action. For example, I have this process. Now I sent an email here. Now when I'm adding condition after this, I would like to add condition on emails. It's like whether this, if your email is opened, then do some actions, or email is reply. If we get a reply from email, do some actions, which means we wanted to allow adding condition on previous actions. But right now the condition block only supports adding condition on task record. Whatever task is being saved on that record, you will be able to add a condition. In a couple of releases, we actually will give an ability to add condition on any previous action. Action can be anything. If you add any record here, like when a task is saved, we wanted to add one event, for example, a meeting or something else, or so we send an SMS. So based on the SMS status, we wanted to perform something. If the record is create event task, based on that event state, we wanted to perform some other action. Right? That is one feature we want to give. Number 2 is trigger the process based on user action. In the starting, I explained, right now the triggers are only 2. Which is every time record is saved, or every time record when a record is created. We wanted to add more triggers on it. One important thing is based on user request. User can click on some button from contact view to trigger some process from the process designer. And 3, allow triggering approvals. So right now all the actions what we support in workflows, those actions are there in process designer also, but we wanted to merge approvals as well. So based on some condition, if you want to send for approval, that feasibility also is coming in process design, and many more actually. So we do have plan to add a lot of things here. But this is our immediate roadmap for 1 or 2 releases down the road. And coming to edition limits, this process designer is only supported on 1 enterprise edition. And second thing, you can add up to 5 process per module. That's all. Because in the process also, we are allowing to add 5 flows per process. For example, the car sale example which I showed you. So I have 1, 2, 3 flows. 4 flows are included in this, and you can add 1 more. So 5 workflows actually can be merged in this process, and up to 5 process you can add per module. And one another thing is tasks in each flow. So these are the tasks, right? This is create a task record, and add a record action, send SMS task, and send email or update record task, send email task. So per flow basically, this is 1 flow, 2nd flow, 3rd flow, 4th flow. In each flow you can add up to 10 tasks. So these are the addition limits what we have. So basically you can add up to 5 module on each, 5 process per module. On each process we can have 5 flows, which means 25 flows we can add per module in the whole process designer for any module. So yeah, so our idea or our plan is to give an easy way and an effective way to facilitate users to add their business rules from one module and one place, and give an ability to configure anything or automate anything based on some other actions. So that's all from Process Designer. So I will see if you have any questions. Feel free to put it
Yes,
in if you.
there was one question from Biswajit. I think he was asking, can we delete it if required? So now I'm not sure whether he's asking about the process designer. We can delete it, right?
Yeah. So
We can delete any process designer and anything inside the process designer, all the actions as well as the flows.
Yes. So basically, once it is published, we are not allowing them to edit anything. This is locked. But if you want to stop this process for any further records, we can disable from here, or we can even disable the whole process from this tree. Number two, if so, the delete option is not available only for published or active versions. For example, here I have multiple versions, right? This is the active version. That's why we are not allowing to delete it. You can only disable it, not delete. For all other versions, we can delete whenever we want. This is the delete option we have. But at any point of time, if you want to stop executing this process, this is the option. We can disable it. So once this is inactive, the whole process will be automatically inactive because there is no other active versions. It will this process will not be triggered on any record.
And we can delete, let's say if we don't need this process itself, we can delete it.
Delete it.
So this is the version, but the entire process itself can be deleted on the.
Yes, delete.
You can delete it.
For example, I click here, delete. None.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Siva. I think that was the one question. Guys, any other questions? I think we don't have any more questions. So in case you do have any doubts or questions, you can send an email to platform@vtiger.com. And yeah, thanks, Siva. Thanks. I think there's one question that has come. Yeah, Biswajit.
Yeah.
Is this replacement of Playbook?
No. No, both have its own abilities individually, but the process designer basically whatever flow we are configuring playbooks can also be configured in process designer. But no, actually, our intention is not that. So playbook has its own features and all. There are some features actually which are not available in process designer also.
And as Siva is saying, just to add to Siva's playbooks again is more for sales related. It's a sales related process, so we tend to keep that to the sales process. And again, the amount of things that you need to do it in Salesforce is limited. And when you come to process designer, it's a much more complex process you need to do. So we don't intend to make it as a replacement, but both will be staying together. So both will be there. Is it possible to automate any business process like leave, expense, claims? Yes, this is a question from Abhishek. Can we automate any business process?
Yes, anything is possible, but one thing is that approval for leave. Actually, there is an approval rule concept. Right now, it is not available, but in the next release or next to next release, we plan to deliver that also. So, any business process you have, yes, so it is possible from process designer.
So Abhishek, leave and expense claims will generally need an approval process. So that is in the roadmaps. It should be coming in the coming release. But you can still do the escalation. You can escalate it to the manager if any requests like that come in. You can send out an email for now. There's just a stopgap measure until approvals is in the system.
Yeah.
Is it only a background process as of now? Abhishek, this is yeah, Siva. I think you would want to answer. Is this only a background process?
No, let me just revise this one moment. So basically, if we see this thing, so the trigger is basically says when to start this process, right? When the record is created or updated. So when user go to the list view of task or deal module and he created a record, that actually falls under this, including creation, and every time record is saved, we selected here. So based on user action, this process is triggered. But if there is a wait time for 2 days, 1 hour, or 2 hours, so process need to wait before proceeding to next action, right? So this particular process will be handled by the background job. But remaining everything is basically a user driven process actually. So user performs some action based on that. This process will trigger and it will continue. I hope that clarifies Abhishek's doubt. On user action in the flow, can actions be configured on user action in the flow? Can you elaborate it? I did not get your question. Sorry.
So I think user action on record save, record create is there, but any other actions like let's say you're clicking on a button, you're clicking on a create button, you're going to the detail page.
Yeah, so that is basically UI flow. Yes, we do have a plan for UI flows as well. But so these are right now the actions what we perform, what we allowed only these actions: create, update, email, SMS, whatever actions we support in workflows, only those things. So right now the UI flow concept is not there in the process designer. It is only the background flow to perform some actions like background action, like creating a record, sending an SMS, sending an email, only those kind of things.
I think there's a follow-up question from. Okay, I think Abhishek got it.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, we will share the recordings with you so you can see it again on your leisure time. I think that's all we have for today. Thank you, Siva. Thank you for the wonderful discussion on this. And thank you guys for sparing time and joining on this. In case you do have any doubts, please do mail us and we'll reply back to you as soon as possible. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Siva.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.